your Texas, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Tuesday, August 13th. We are here live. It's time for the Power Hour. We'll get to your calls and questions here in just a little bit. If you're watching on the live stream, you can pick up the phone and dial 855-950-3835. If you're listening on the app, you can hit that call now button. Today is all about maintenance. It is the Power Hour. Got the team here from Pittsburgh Power. We'll hear from them, and then we'll get to your calls and questions. So line them up. Real quick, before we do that, I want to remind you we've got a big drawing going on today, a raffle, from now till the 23rd. So you've got 10 days. We have got 4 tickets to the Tucker Carlson live tour in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'll be there. We are giving away 2 pairs of tickets. So there will be 2 winners. Each winner gets 2 tickets. That way you can take somebody. We'll draw those winners on the 26th. The event is, what day is the event? The 5th? Does that sound right? The 7th. September 7th in Salt Lake City. Should be a great event. Glenn Beck is his guest at that stop on the tour. And all you have to do to be in the drawing is just go to the store now at letstruck.com and grab some Cardio Miracle. If you buy Cardio Miracle, you will be put into the drawing. It's a random drawing on the 26th. And we'll be giving away 2 pairs of tickets. So head on over to letstruck.com and put some Cardio Miracle in that cart. Let's find out what's going on this morning at Pittsburgh Power. Good morning, guys. Oh, boy.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
There you are. I was a little worried there for a second.
Yeah, Jordan had the mute button on there a little bit extra long.
Got it. So you and Leroy there this morning?
Leroy is on his way up. We actually have a very busy shop this week. A lot of emissions problems going on here.
Really?
We're fixing and repairing. Yep. Yeah, Other shops just, I don't want to say misdiagnosed, but just can't figure it out where we are. That's what sets us apart on a lot of this stuff. And a lot of guys I talk to are running the max mileage, are the ones that are in the shop without emissions problems.
Yeah.
So it's actually, proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. That's, I remember when we were first, we've been going through emissions problems for quite a while now, but when we first started, and I did some research on it, and I found, the OEM Solution Trees, and I kind of followed them through, and I thought, I'm not sure why these shops are struggling with this stuff so much. It's right here. And I know it's not perfect, but they put a lot of work into that. Do this, then this, then this. And there was a whole decision tree for all this stuff on how you troubleshoot it. But then I realized you take a truck into the shop, they're not doing that.
Exactly.
And, then when I really got to talking to Leroy about it, and he said, no, that's exactly what we do. And that's what you have to do. The troubleshooting, we've talked about this, just general troubleshooting skills. And that can get you a long way, but the equipment has gotten so much more complicated. You need more than just intuition. You've got to have a system. And I was just shocked that this system exists and most shops don't use it.
The trouble trees that they set up, like what you said, is exactly that. They put a lot of R&D into that, a lot of effort. It literally tells you to dot every I, cross every T. But it also takes a special kind of technician. You have to have somebody with a mechanical background, and we can go through everybody in our shop. And I can tell you, one guy is into race cars. He works at a race car track, Adam. Every weekend he's up at the local track called Beacon Hill. Rock is our shop foreman now. He has a pulling truck. Toby has an F-150 with a Coyote V8 that's pretty well hopped up
Yeah.
for a Coyote. Runs it on the 85, and it has to add another additive to it because of the tune. Ryan's into motorsports as well, a lot of like watercrafting and pickup trucks. And Corey is just all around a good mechanic and mechanical mindset too, because that's what it takes. I mean,
Well,
not only do you have to have the software and the tooling, but you also have to have the mechanical capabilities, and that's again what sets us apart from a lot of other shops.
I saw that firsthand when I stayed there and I spent a lot of time and I was working on my own stuff after hours. And, while I was there after hours working, I'd wander out in the parking lot and there'd be 3 or 4 or 5 of the guys out there working on one of their cars or talking about it. Or, there was always something going on. Somebody was turning wrenches even after work. And then what I was really surprised about, but absolutely love, is not just the mechanics that turn wrenches are gearheads. All the guys
Yeah,
in the electrical, the programming, all that, they're all gearheads too.
yep, every one of them.
Yeah.
Leroy and Nate, who's Pete's nephew, is interning with us this summer. They both have motorcycles, as well as JR. And I'm pretty sure Alex, the fourth wheel back there, is also getting a bike too. But cars, bikes,
Yeah.
anything with an engine,
Yep.
it's in our DNA.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So what do you, other than being really busy, got anything else going on in the shop today or anything you want to talk about?
Yep, I got a couple things I want to talk about.
Good.
The shop, we've had some really interesting stuff in here. We got a 2019 Freightliner Cascadia that was towed into us from another shop because they kind of threw their arms up at it, and it had a def problem. And when we poured the side skirts off and looked around, there was literally like a volcano of urea coming out over around the doser nozzle. It had been leaking for so long that they could probably fill up, I would say, a pint jar, maybe even a quart jar with the crystallized urea on the outside of the doser nozzle, on the outside of the after one box. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. Jordan has some pictures. I'm pretty sure he's going to be posting them up on our social media page later on for people to look at. It's phenomenal. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
Wow.
We have a '06, 7, '07 Caterpillar in a Kenworth T600 in here. We're doing we put a balancer on it. We just did an in frame on it, and then the customer side, he wanted to put the balancing ring on it. So he brought it back to us to go back over it and put the balancer on, fix some wiring stuff. One of the techs back there this morning, Alex, is in our electrical department, was looking over some stuff in the computer and saw that the ECM was not reading the engine coolant signal. So he went and talked to the driver and he said, "Hey, does your temperature gauge work?" He said, "Yeah, it works fine." But he caught that from having the laptop plugged in and looking
Ah,
around and just poking around.
right.
It only takes 5 more minutes to go through that. So we're actually fixing that too, because that could inadvertently affect the fuel mileage in the future,
Right.
where it's going to actually cut back because it thinks the temperature is too cold. One really unique one I have in here is a 1970 Peterbilt 359 needle nose. Has the accordion style hood and
Wow.
the fenders just about where the deleted words I can't say on air that makes
Right.
a mechanic like us, because there's too high. You're either on a ladder or you're really uncomfortable because it's digging into your chest.
Right.
It's just not a comfortable thing. They look cool, but they're just not comfortable to work on. But we're installing a fast fuel pump on it. Now it has an electronic N14 installed in it. Somebody else already installed. And because of the needle nose and the engine bay constrictments, it can't fit a charge air cooler. So it was basically just a direct airflow, but they retrofitted an aftercooler onto this electronic N14 from a big cam. So it actually is an aftercooled N14. It's kind of a unique
Wow.
situation if you see it. Really neat truck though.
Yeah.
Uh, have an 18 International in here with some other emissions problems. And then we have a 16 Freightliner in here. It's a glider with the Detroit Series 60. Found the exhaust manifolds cracked, which is notorious for the Series 60s. But we also found that the intake manifold was leaking severely under our boost test. And when Corey pulled the manifold off, he noticed that the head had a lot of corrosion, and so does the intake manifold. And that's something a lot of guys don't really look at too often is the intake manifold. You think a boost leak is just a charge air cooler or maybe just a hose or a clamp.
Right.
It's everything system. You have to remember that the turbo's in there, the air compressor's in there, the charge air cooler, your clamps, hoses, tubing. That's all part of the system. And we've seen this more than once. The intake manifolds are aluminum.
Right.
The intake manifold gaskets are steel, and steel and aluminum sometimes corrode. You have to clean them up with a flat file, maybe use a little bit of JB Weld as like a crude version of body filler, like putty job almost, and then file that down smooth to make sure that you get a good sealant in there. But that's something that people do overlook on a lot of these engines is the intake manifold. And that's pretty much what
on that note, I remember when we first really started talking about testing charge air coolers. For a lot of years, we kind of ignored the charge air cooler the way we ignored the damper. Nobody ever paid any attention to it. When you think about it, a charge air cooler is a radiator, except it only has air flowing through it. A radiator, when it leaks, it leaks. It's leaking, you fix it. When a charge air cooler leaks, you have no real idea that it's leaking unless you're testing it. I've seen charge air coolers that won't hold any pressure whatsoever, and yet nobody's even addressed it. So we started talking a lot about pressure test the charge air coolers. We showed people how to make their own testers. We talked about it all the time. And then this actually happened when I had the shop down in Tennessee with Robert Fitzgerald. We bought a smoke machine to try to see if we could find air leaks in the air system. And we spent a lot of money on a pretty expensive smoke machine, and it failed miserably at that. You couldn't find a leak anywhere with that machine in the air system. We called the manufacturer and we were talking to their tech line, and they said, "Oh, no, that's never going to work." The problem with the air system is you have so many small openings that the smoke drops out of the system. There's just no way to keep the smoke suspended through the whole system. And we couldn't return this smoke machine. We paid like $1,400 for it. It was a good one. So we were sitting around and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do with this thing, sell it to some automotive shop or whatever. And next to us in the bay, they were doing a charge air cooler test. And Robert and I started looking at each other and we said, we could probably run smoke through the whole intake system. And that's where the smoke test came from for us anyway. And it really does make a difference. It's one thing to know the charge air cooler is solid, but you could still have a lot of other intake leaks.
Yep. We just had a lengthy conversation about this yesterday. And a lot of people don't realize too that there's creep, CREEP with aluminum. And that is when the aluminum is subjected to pressure and temperature, it's going to distort, and it takes a toll on it. It loses its efficiency.
Yeah.
Depending on composition of aluminum, whether you have 60, whatever the composition might be as far as the elements make up. But that's something that people need to realize, that this is a maintenance item. It's not just like what you said perfectly, like a dampener. It's just on there. It stays on there. No, it is something you need to take good care of and change it out periodically.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Did Leroy make it yet?
He is.
Leroy, good morning.
Why do you say it like that? Good morning.
What do you got for us today?
I'll tell you what, Kevin, this week I've been really struggling. And last week we've been on the struggle bus in the engineering room. So we've been working on a new product now since probably last December. Sort of the idea came around last year. And then when Nate came around, we have a lot more engineering power on hand and just more people that have the time to do it. And so we've been in development of this product. And I mentioned it a few times as we've, in the last couple of shows, the last several months. And we did our second round of testing last week. But the reason we're on the struggle bus is just the engineering process is tough, and it doesn't always go your way. Bruce, I think Jane actually said a couple weeks ago, she mentioned about noble failures, where you fail at something even though you really tried.
Right.
And a lot of our testing, not a lot of it, but there's a significant amount of our testing that sort of falls in the category of noble failure. And that's when you spend like 45 minutes, setting up the test, running the test, and then you look back a week later because you don't want to look at your data while you're collecting it, especially if you only have a small amount of time to collect said data.
Right.
You want to graph it all and then look at it next week. So this week we've been looking at it and we've noticed a lot of tests just didn't work out. Something happened to the data link. We lost data. The dyno numbers didn't line up. And you mostly see it when you're making the graphs. And it's not necessarily an XY relationship where you have one input and then you get this output. It's an engine, right? Like when you talked about fuel economy, what do you say? There's like 80 different things it could be.
At least.
Is that what you normally say, Kevin?
Yeah. I identified everything that could impact fuel economy and then tried to separate it out into things we can control and things we can't. We can't really control the weather, the wind, the road surface, but I tried to create a list of all the things. When I got up to around 80, I thought, okay, it's not going to matter if I make it 120. Nobody's going to pay attention to the 80 anyway, so why keep going?
Right. And any sort of testing like that can feel that way, especially like in our shop. I mean, we have a dyno and we have some equipment and things like that, but we're not a laboratory, right? So
Right.
even something like a variable that messes with our test is this truck that we had, our test truck had a weed burner on it, and it's August, and the dyno room slowly gets hotter as the day goes on. So you'll start out with a cool 70 degrees in the afternoon, and it feels like it's 110 by 3 o'clock. And if your engine's breathing 110-degree air, that's less density. That's less air density, right?
Right.
So you're going to have automatically low power. So there's just, when you try to figure out the XY relationship, but then you have, 40 variables going in, and then you're trying to look for like one specific output, you're saying, how does this one parameter change this output? Like, what's the rate of change of this one output for this?
Right.
It's been pretty difficult. The first set of testing we did, we felt like the numbers we got were pretty encouraging. Not exactly what we expected, but encouraging in a good way. So we wanted to repeat it again several months later on a different truck with a new iteration of the design. So just going through the results, it's tough. And the other thing that happened was one of our prototype parts was we had 3D printed in another country because it was cheaper, right? So just to throw some numbers at you, in lead time, we have this product, right? We have it designed on the computer, we have it modeled, everything, and it looks great. We made it on our printer, which is pretty small. I think you can print like 10 inches by 10 inches by 10 maybe tall, something like that, a small 10-inch cube.
Yeah.
So the thing we're trying to make is much bigger than that. So we have to print it in small 5-inch pieces and glue them all together.
Okay.
So obviously you're not putting that on a truck. You're just kind of
Right.
like modeled something you can hold in your hand. And if you want something like that prototyped in the US, it's going to cost you probably around $3,000 to $4,000 to have a prototype made.
Yeah.
If you have it made from a Chinese company, it costs you $400.
That's insane. That is
For the same
absolutely
thing.
just insane.
Now here's the downside. You're like, oh, this couldn't be. What could go wrong, right? For $400. So we send our drawing off to the Lugans, and we say we want it made in like this polycarbonate nylon, right?
Okay.
Which is sort of a high strength, high temp, flexible material. And they say after like a week or two goes by, we submit the order, we give them our money. 2 weeks go by, and they say it's not working out on our printer. Our nozzle's doesn't extrude it very well. We're having a lot of issues. Can we recommend a different material? We want to switch to a different polycarbonate, blah blah blah. I can't remember what it was called.
Right.
But so we're like, that's not what we wanted. But I mean, we're looking at what it is. like the material science. I mean, we're not material science, Nate and I, but you kind of look at the melting temperature and the pressure and the strength, and you can kind of say, well, it's probably got to hold that, right?
Okay.
So they finally, after 3 weeks, say, we have it printed, but the print messed up on one of your bolt holes. Like, well, it's kind of important to have the bolt hole, right? But whatever, we'll take it. It's been a month and a half now. So we get our print in and we start to sort of mess with it and, get it prepped for testing. We had scheduled our test truck, everything like that. And then it cracks. And we're like, this is a really weird thing for something that's supposed to be this strong.
Right.
For polycarbonate, something to crack when we were just kind of playing with it, and not doing anything bad to it. And the more we looked at it, we were like, this is the cheap PLA. I think that's polylactic acid or something.
Okay.
It's some sort of thermoplastic, right? It's you can get it for $20 for a roll.
Right.
It's extremely cheap.
Right.
But it's just, you can make a shave. And we're like, I think they made it out of PLA. So we do some really basic testing, and it's like it melts at the same temperature as PLA. So
Yeah.
and it feels like PLA. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it probably is.
Yeah.
Right. So we're like, you made this out of the cheap material, which would never survive on an engine.
Right.
If we put this on there, it would certainly explode, which would make a good video, but not a great product. As one,
it was such a beautiful truck too. We had to test with too.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
A little sarcasm.
Yeah, it was a rental,
that.
But
yeah.
it was a like canary yellow day cab, extended frame. Like we think it was an Expediter truck at one time. They pulled the box off, but it was
okay.
It had it was
yeah. We got it. Yeah, we didn't buy it for aesthetics. I mean, it was
right.
She's a beaut, Clark, but yeah, it was.
Yeah. Oh, it's just a shame that and it's a shame, and it's really tough. Like Bruce said about the noble failures and things where you try really hard and sometimes things just don't work out. But I mean, this is the work that goes into new products and the time, ever since last year, and it's probably going to continue on to this year.
Yeah.
It's not going to be ready for release anytime soon. But
right.
Hey,
several.
It's one of the things.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah, I was going to say several things from that story. One, I have some encouragement for you. When you are frustrated or confused, don't stop. You're about to make a breakthrough. You just got to keep pushing. So being frustrated and confused on a product like this is a good thing, or a project like this. You just got to keep pushing through. But usually when you get to that point that you're really frustrated or really confused, it's easy to quit then or to take an easier path, but keep pushing through. Something will happen. You'll have a breakthrough there. Brittany's call screening today, and she did come up with something good from this story, and I kind of agree with her. Noble Failure. That's an excellent name for a band. I like that. It's got a ring to it.
What kind of genre does that fall under?
Yeah, I don't know. It's got a ring to it. So I had a failure yesterday. I don't think I would call it noble because I didn't put a ton of work into this idea. And it's not the first time I've tried something like this, and it keeps failing, and I'm beginning to think that I should just give up on the idea. So one of the challenges I have on the show is no matter what I talk about, there's somebody that wants you to talk about something else. You get the comments, oh my God, if we have to talk about tire rolling resistance one more time, I'm never going to listen to the show again. Or, the catalyst or any topic I talk about, somebody will complain about it. It's just part of this business. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's why I do segments the way we do. So people know, look, if you don't like maintenance, if you're not interested in maintenance, don't tune in on Tuesdays because that's all we do. If you don't like health, when I talk about health, you probably shouldn't listen on Wednesdays. So it's kind of why I started doing that. I used to just do everything all day, kind of a free-for-all all the time. And this really helped. Then people would say, well, good, because I don't want to listen to that on this day or whatever. One of the topics that I get a ton of pushback on from one group and a lot of encouragement from another group is politics. People who like politics want to talk about them all the time. People who don't like politics don't want to hear about them ever. that there's hardly any gray in there. So every time I would talk about politics, people would just bitch constantly. So I thought, all right, I'll create a segment just for politics then. And I even came up with a clever name. We called it The Pit, Politics in Trucking. And the whole point was during that segment, that's what we would talk about. I had to cancel it after a couple shows. Really, what I had hoped is that we would have discussed differences, somewhat without screaming at each other and calling each other names, and just actually talk about our differences in politics. Well, the show turned out to be nothing but a giant echo chamber. Everybody that would listen to the show just agreed with what I was saying. That's really boring. So we gave that up. I think I tried it 2 different times when we gave it up. So then I had an idea. I'll do it as an X space. And we called it the Fight Club. And it was all about debating anything, not even just politics. And it wasn't about the topic. It was about learning how to debate without what we do today, which is scream at each other and call names and just keep repeating our points. So I put together these rules. We tested it. It worked really good. But I have a problem. Nobody will debate. Show yesterday for about 2 hours and couldn't get anybody to really debate anything. So it's kind of the same thing that happened last time. If everybody in there is agreeing, what is there to debate? And the people who disagree with me, mostly on social media, and I refuse to debate or argue on social media. I make my points. People can say whatever they want, and I just move on. That's a horrible way to debate. They won't come on the show and debate. So the whole Fight Club thing kind of failed again. I should probably give up on that. So, and then it seems like I had one other. Oh, yeah, I know what it is. What you're describing right now, this product. And at some point, somebody had an idea for this. And now you're going through the process of making that idea a reality. And there's a chance this product will never make it to market. You may find out if we knew for sure it was going to make it to market, you wouldn't have to do all this testing and development and tweaking and changing and figuring things out. And you would just build it and put it out there and sell it, except it never happens that way. And over the years, one of the things that people have gotten upset with me about is somebody will call me and they'll tell me about this great idea they have for something. And then they'll want me to buy the idea. And I'll say, well, no, ideas are basically worthless. They have, everybody has ideas. There's ideas everywhere. This is not the hard part. Coming up with an idea for a product is not difficult at all. I can do it all day long. The difficulty comes in is bringing that product to market and making money with it. And it is really, really difficult. And people don't understand that. And they think, but this is a good idea and I'm just going to sell it to you. Well, no, you're not, because I'm not buying it, because I know what it would take to bring it to market and it may not ever make it. And the one show that when it first came out, I used to talk about it a lot because I did learn a lot from that show, was Shark Tank. And if you watch Shark Tank,
I love it.
They will never, ever buy an idea, ever. If you don't have a product with sales, you're probably going to fail on that show. That's almost a golden rule for them. It's one of the first questions they ask. After the big, long pitch, somebody will say, all right, tell us about your sales. And if you have nothing, you're probably not getting an offer.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, you talked about having the idea and then bringing it to market. From the birth of the idea to where it is today, it's not the same. What our original idea was did not work out.
Right.
The heart of the idea lives on, but what actually we had initially planned did not work out. So I mean, it keeps growing and evolving and turning into this and that. And then the first round of testing, we were expecting a certain result, and we didn't get that, but we got a benefit in another area that we weren't expecting.
Yeah,
right. Like, oh, well, that's not what we were going after, but this happened.
Look,
that's kind of interesting. We should go down that rabbit hole.
Well, there's all kinds of great examples of that. I study products and companies, and I read all that kind of stuff. Post-it notes. The note, the note you can stick anywhere and it comes right back off and doesn't leave a residue. They were working on a super glue when they created that.
I would not correlate Post-it notes with super glue.
Yeah, they were originally working on a really, really strong adhesive and ended up with Post-it notes by mistake, and they turned into a huge product.
Yeah.
There's
I mean, that's kind of
a bunch of examples like that of just what you said. We had an idea, we were testing it. Our idea was totally wrong, wouldn't work at all, but we discovered several things while we were working on it.
And I mean, and I think that's what we're kind of we're trying to stay focused on is just because it's our idea, it works in our head. Like, you just have to go with the numbers and what the data tells you. If
Right.
it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Exactly.
Just because you want it doesn't mean it is. But
that's another
and it's
danger.
really hard when you've worked on something this long and you're this attached to it to,
Yes.
maybe someday have to pull the plug on it.
Yep. All right. Well, we will look forward to hearing updates on this in the future. I'm sure it's going to be going on for a while.
At least a while, yep.
Yeah. All right. I was going to say something, but I'm not. We're going to say good morning to Bruce. Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning. I was trying to talk, but you weren't listening, so I guess I was still muted.
I was so enthralled with the story there that I almost forgot you were there waiting.
That story that Leroy just told is one of thousands.
Yes. Yeah.
Thousands.
You've done this your whole
career.
When
John Walco and I,
you have all kinds
John
of products.
Walco and I were trying to figure out how to use the high lift cam and a big cam without the mechanical variable timing. We were working on an old white constructioner, the butterfly hood.
Oh yeah.
I heard Eric call it the accordion hood.
Right. It
was a butterfly hood, diamond plate check fenders that would just eat into your knees. We didn't have knee pads back then. We had that camshaft in and out of that engine 5 times.
Oh, man.
And now people will call up, what's the right cam key to use for this big, to put the high lift cam in a big cam without MVT? Oh, no.
You're right.
We'll sell you the parts and we'll sell you the cam and we'll tell you how to time it, which way to put the arrow, but I just can't give you that information for free after what we went through. And this has been going on for 48 years. So
yeah.
Back to the Post-it note. I heard the guy that worked for 3M sang in a choir in a church. And he would, let's say they're going to sing 6 different hymns. And he would open up the hymnal book and put pieces of paper in, and then they would fall out. So he went to work one day and made the first Post-it note, and that way it wouldn't fall out of the hymnal.
I wonder why Post-it note has garnered so many stories. I've read several stories about Post-it notes, and it seems like such an odd product to have so many stories about.
I want to know who made the first wire tie, the plastic wire tie.
Yeah.
Now, that was a great invention.
Didn't
and then
Velcro
did you hear how
didn't Velcro come out of the space program? I think it did. I think I read that story somewhere. Velcro was developed during the NASA space program years.
Maybe to keep stuff from flying around in a spaceship.
Now there's
no gravity.
There's a funny story about that with space, and it turns out that it's not necessarily true, but I've repeated it many times in seminars and talking because it makes a good point, whether it's true or not. So the story goes that NASA spent like $100,000 to develop a pen that would write in zero gravity, because pens need gravity to work.
Yeah.
And they needed to be able to write in space, and they spent all this money and they developed a pen. And then the joke is that the Soviets just use a pencil.
Well, when I was 19 years old in midnight dock foreman at Motor Freight Express, I had to go and check several of our 40-foot van trailers and write down what's inside, and the clipboard's up above my head. And I would come in and say to Don Ickes, who was my supervisor, great guy, I said, these damn ink pens don't write. And he said, that's because you have the clipboard up above your head.
Exactly.
He said, it works off of gravity.
Yeah.
And I said, is that right? So the pen has to be pointing down.
Yep.
To work. See, you can learn from a lot of people. You just have to listen.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
The lady that invented whiteout back for typing years ago.
Yeah.
And every time you'd make a mistake and you're typing a page, you'd have to start all over again. She took flour and clear nail polish and mixed it together. And she's correcting her typing. So the girl beside her wanted some of that, and it spread throughout the office, and it spread throughout the building, and it went into the next office building. Next thing you know, she's got a business mixing flour and clear nail polish.
I love stories like that.
And me too. And there's another reason why I'm saying this. And she eventually sold out to Borden for $35 million. And this was back in the 80s or early 90s. $35 million was a lot of money.
Oh, it still is.
The reason we're saying this is I had a guy call me yesterday with an invention. It sounded too good to be true. And I placed 2 calls into him. I want to hear about this. It's supposed to gain 3 gears in the Rocky Mountains and stay at 180 degrees. I said, well, that's a lot of horsepower to gain 3 full gears going up an 8% grade and stay at 180 degrees when it takes 16 degrees to fully open the thermostat. But we're going to find out what it is because it might be something. And, just like meeting Jane Gates.
That's right.
With the max mileage fuel-borne catalyst. I mean, here was a lady with a product. Worked 35 years on it. And wow, what a product it's turned out to be. And while I'm talking about that, I've had 2 calls this week from people with emission problems. I said, are you running the max mileage catalyst? They said, what is that? So I'm delivering a gallon today over close to DC to a customer that has a Freightliner with a 1 box and less than 500,000 miles, and it's having issues. So back to inventions.
Yes.
A lot of owner-operators have a lot of thinking time, and they come up with a lot of specialty items. And it might be a tool, and it might be sitting in their garage. And if it's a tool they think they can market, I'd like to hear about it. Let's take a look at it and see if it's something that we could have manufactured and market.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a lot of ideas, and Shark Tank brings them out. It's a phenomenal show. If I was young again, I'd try to be on Shark Tank multiple times with different things. And the mistake that I see people make, and they come on, they have this great product, and they want a Shark Tank to come on for 5%. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You're going to take these people that are multimillionaires and their brains and their whole group that's behind them. It's just not that person. You're getting their whole company.
Exactly. Yeah.
So why don't you come in there? And if I had a product and they wanted 51%, I'd say sold. You got it. Then you ride their shirt tails.
And then if you're that smart, go on and develop other products, and you're going to learn through the process of what they do and how they bring it to market. I learn a ton just from watching the show. I've learned a lot about, sales ratios and retail marketing, things I know a lot about business, but I've never done a lot of retail. So I learned a ton about, retail and margins, and it's a really educational show if you watch it. If you really pay attention, I've learned a lot about business and numbers. And, Bruce, you said if you were younger and you might go on that show, we talked seriously about applying for that show with Monkey Brittle. I thought Monkey Brittle was a unique enough product. You can't find anything else like it. Again, finding a really unique food product that was that healthy is really unusual. We talked about it, but ultimately we didn't license the products. We were going to license that product from them. and it was going to be ours, and then I was going to take it on the Shark Tank. That ended up not working out, and they gave the license to somebody else. And he's doing a great job. He's got it into Whole Foods, and it's really starting to spread. We are still the only online distributor, but I really thought that product could have made it on Shark Tank.
Especially if you had put your cinnamon almond butter on it or whatever. Is that cinnamon honey or cinnamon almond butter?
Maple cinnamon, maybe. The nut butter. I think we have a maple cinnamon. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, we have several, but it's good stuff. All right, what else we got today?
Okay. I want to talk about the ISX and the X15. We still have the exhaust manifolds, the intake manifolds, and everyone's looking for fuel mileage, and there's a half mile of a gallon sitting right there, just in the two manifolds, plus lower exhaust temperatures, better airflow. So it's really a great add-on to that engine. And torsional dampers. I'm getting some phone calls from people that have never changed their torsional damper, and they've been running the same engine for 25 years.
Wow.
And we don't talk about torsional dampers very much because we've talked about it so much and what the torsional damper does. And it's a shock absorber to the engine, and it does wear out in 500,000 miles. All right. So I also had written down about noble failures, but Leroy has that. And, so when he mentioned getting stuff made overseas, sometimes we have to do that because an American manufacturer won't make less than a run of 2,000.
Right.
Our mufflers are made in Canada.
Yeah.
Because the American manufacturers, they wanted to make 2,000 of every part number.
Oh.
Well, I wouldn't have been able to put that in the building.
No way. That's crazy.
Yeah. Sometimes we need to order 10.
Right. Right.
So the ACERT gaskets for the ACERT Caterpillar, you don't like that metal insert that's in there because it breaks off and wipes out the two turbochargers. So we have those made in Turkey because they'll make the material that we want and the number that we want. And, being in the U.S., most of us don't even know where Turkey is, let alone anything made there. But I can tell you, when you go to boat shows and you look at boats made in Turkey, they have a material. It's different woods and laminates of fiberglass that they glue together, and their hulls are about 2 inches thick. Wow. Virtually almost a destruction-proof fiberglass wood hull. And the woodwork is phenomenal from these Turkish-made boats.
Yeah.
And I was blown away when I went to my first boat show on the eastern coast. It was probably Fort Lauderdale when I saw this boat, and I was shocked. Made in Turkey. Whoever thinks of anything made in Turkey?
Yeah, it's not a common one. Not at all.
That's exactly right.
Huh.
And if you want to see some real craftsmen, people making stuff, go to Mexico City. A lot of that stuff never makes it here, but they still can work with their hands down there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's...
Something else I wanted to say.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'm not finished yet.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm suffering with a distorted hip and a knee issue right now. It's been going on for a couple months. And my good chiropractors, I have two of them in Pittsburgh, both out in Western Pennsylvania. But I'm in Maryland. I'm 287 miles away. So I've tried two different chiropractors here. I've tried chiropractors in Florida. And I came to the conclusion that chiropractors are like mechanics. Some mechanics or chiropractors come out of school, and that's it. They have their piece of paper and they go to work.
Yep.
They don't seem to go to seminars. They don't extend their education. Well, some mechanics are really good in maybe putting wheel bearings in on your hubs, changing brakes. They might even be good at building an engine. But then there are mechanics like we have in Leroy's engineering department that fine-tune things. How I was with turbochargers on older engines and setting valves and injectors, and how Pat Sharp is on building big cam pumps and injectors. It's the fine little things. And I'm looking for a chiropractor that has continued to study and know the fine points of the body, just like you are doing in health. So there's so many different levels of everything in every occupation.
You know,
and I said to my chiropractor when I saw him 2 months ago, I said, how come you know so much more? He's 77 years old. Oh, you met him, Frank Cicerella. I said,
like
why do you know so much more than all the other ones? He said, because I never quit learning.
You know what else?
And that's how we are at Pittsburgh Power.
It's interesting. I was going to talk about this, and then I wasn't because I was going to get to the calls, but now I'm going to, because we've talked about this before. Mike Beckett's phrase of some people, very, very few people really have 20 years of experience in anything. They have 1 year of experience 20 times. And that was a great way to put it. That, like you said, you come out of school, you learn the basics, and you just keep doing stuff over and over, and you don't learn new stuff. One, you have to have the desire to learn new stuff. But another big one that I think gets in people's way, and I see this a lot now, especially in health and nutrition, the ability to look at yourself and say, I may have believed this my entire life, but it's wrong. And I need to change the way I think. You have to be willing to admit that you've been wrong about a lot of things, or you won't be willing to learn anything new. And a lot of people just can't do that. They just can't let go of something. And one of the things I, was going to debate somebody about yesterday, but they wouldn't debate me on it, was this idea that weight gain or loss is all about calories in and calories out. I said it for years. I believed it for years. It is 100% false. Weight loss or gain has almost nothing whatsoever to do with calories at all. And we use this stupid rule, the law of thermodynamics, to try to prove that a calorie matters, but that applies to machines, not human bodies. And people will scream, oh, no, you don't understand the law of thermodynamics. Well, no, I do understand it. And I understand that it does not apply to the human body. But if they're not willing to learn something new and admit what they've known is wrong, it's very hard to learn and grow.
So, in a sentence or two, if it's not calories in, calories out, what is it?
Hormones. Number one hormone being insulin. And here's the easiest explanation to try to get people.
Now, you know how to make a hormone, right?
Don't pay her.
Yeah, okay.
So
it's the hormones. How do you change the hormones?
And I can explain.
How do you tell 10 pounds of hormones to get off my body?
No, this is the easiest way for people to start to understand why a calorie doesn't matter. When we talk about machines and how they use energy, which is the law of thermodynamics that they want to point to, that machine is designed to do one thing and it uses one fuel. It's easy to say, yes, there's this much energy in the fuel, the machine can do this much work. That does not apply to the human body. And here's why. And I ask people, do you really believe that you would get the same results if you ate 1,000 calories of Snickers bars every day or 1,000 calories of beef? Do you really think you would get the same outcome health-wise? And people have to say, oh, well, of course not, but you'd gain the same amount of weight. No, you absolutely would not. And here's why. There's a whole bunch of hormones involved in this, and it can get really complicated, but the simple explanation, the master hormone is insulin. And the foods you eat will either trigger insulin or they won't. If insulin is triggered, if the body releases a bunch of insulin because you just ate something, that insulin is the signal for your body to store those calories as fat. That's what happens. The body said, look, there's calories present and there's insulin present. We are going to take all of those calories and store them as fat. If you eat something and it doesn't release insulin, then your body says, look, there's a bunch of calories available. Let's use them as energy. That is the whole game right there. So now all you need to know to lose weight is what foods trigger insulin and what doesn't. And the worst trigger for insulin are carbohydrates of any kind, starches and sugars.
Yeah.
When you eat those, your body releases insulin and you will gain weight because your body's going to take all those calories and store them. But if you eat the opposite of carbohydrates is fat. Protein is somewhere in the middle. Fat will not trigger an insulin response. They've actually proven you can keep a type 1 diabetic alive with no insulin whatsoever if all they eat is fat. And they'll actually thrive. But even protein
Kevin,
can potentially trigger some insulin response. And the more insulin resistant you are, the harder it can be to lose weight, even on pure carnivore. If you don't get enough fat into that diet and there's too much protein, you will still struggle sometimes to get your blood sugar down. So carbohydrates have to go. They will always make you gain weight and store those calories. And fat is your friend because it does not trigger insulin at all. And protein is really important. We just have to be somewhat moderate with our protein.
That's right. And I love the fact that you said that you can eat all the bacon you want, because bacon is just
bacon
great
is
food. And every time I eat a piece of bacon, I don't feel guilty anymore. I said, Kevin says this is healthy.
And the one reason, if we just think about what I said, bacon is only made up of fat and protein, and it's mostly fat. It's one of the fattiest cuts of meat we eat. And that's why we talk about bacon. One, people love bacon. Who doesn't? But two, it is a really nice ratio of fat to meat if you're trying to lose weight.
Mm-hmm. We get the extra thick peppered bacon. So.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
One last thing I wanted to say.
Okay.
It's dogs and trucks. We've had, over the years, we're very dog friendly. We love dogs at Pittsburgh Power. Love to see the dogs. For a while there, we were taking pictures and putting them on a board. And 4 years ago, I got this little dog, this little mini golden doodle that you people hear bark. And he was 8 weeks old when we picked him up in Lancaster, PA, and drove him to Pittsburgh. So he had 4.5, 5 hours in the car, and that was the start. He loves to ride.
Ah, okay.
After 10, 12 hours, he's ready to get out. He gives you some looks. But I had to move the pickup truck today so Debbie could get the car out of the driveway. And he jumps in right away. I mean, he hears the remote starter going, and he's there right at the pickup truck. He seems to even know which vehicle we're going to take. And if you say the red truck or the white car, he knows.
Wow.
And he jumps in the truck, and I just turn it around in the driveway, and he doesn't want to get out. So he'll go from the passenger seat. I'll close the door, go over to the passenger side. He jumps over to the driver's side, and back and forth. And so I just have to leave the truck and leave the door open. But over the years, people say, they've tried to leave their dogs at home. And whenever they knew the semi-truck was leaving, they could tell the owner-operator by how he was packing his clothes in his suitcase. Yep. And you hear these stories, and until you live it, Bentley, our little dog, watches to see what we're going to pick up, or if we're getting dressed. He knows. And if Debbie picks up her purse, he really knows. So
Bruce,
love the dog stories. And if anybody, when they call me and has a short one, I would like to hear it.
I absolutely love dogs. You want to know a thought I had just recently, and kind of plays into what you were just talking about? When I look at dogs and humans, I start to believe that they're actually smarter than we are. Do you know why? You just described something. You can say the red truck or the white car, and they get it. Lots of dogs that have been able to, there are lots of dogs that can choose out of 10 different toys. You name a toy and they'll go get that toy. Well, if we think about this, how is it that dogs figure out our language and our words and understand it? I know almost nothing from anything my dog says or barks. They're smarter than we are. They figured out our language better than we've figured out theirs.
They're very interesting, and they're sight, their hearing, and their smell is so strong.
Yeah.
This guy, we were sitting in my sister's home, which is on a concrete slab in Florida. We are 60 feet from the front door. Front porch is concrete. It's 10 o'clock at night, and he heard a rabbit sitting there on the front porch, and he knew it. And he goes running over and barks. Now he's standing here talking or looking at me because he's been sleeping right under the desk the whole time. Now he's staring at me because I'm talking about him.
Right.
But
he knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're just amazing little creatures.
I agree.
And I haven't had one for 40 some years. And when I lived with my parents, the dogs stayed in the garage and in the basement, and they would come up for the fireplace in the evening and watch television, but then they went back to their bed. And when they're with you 24/7, they're really something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I saw the picture of Diesel with his goggles on. And I wanted to say one last thing about your Lisa.
Yes.
I love the pictures that she posts of all the flowers that you're planting over at your homestead, because it's just the vibrant colors that flowers bring. I won't say that I like flowers because I like the colors.
Right.
Now, flowers are all just green, just like everything else. They wouldn't mean anything, but it's the colors that they bring out.
That's a fairly new thing for me. I just started that last gardening season, and I kind of got into the flowers mostly because they bring in the pollinators that help all your vegetables. Because if your vegetables don't get pollinated, they don't grow anything. And we have an issue in this country. We've been losing the bee population for a long time due to pesticides and all kinds of chemicals. And so there's a push to try to get pollinators back. And that's one of the ways you do it. So I started growing flowers for the pollinators. Then I really fell in love with growing flowers. And it was a perfect fit because Lisa can spend hours taking pictures of them. And then she posts them, and she, puts them together in videos. So I grow the flowers, and I've fallen in love with having them around and all the color. And then she takes pictures. So it works great. I planted.
So you plant the flowers. I was giving Lisa credit for planting those flowers.
Well, all the pictures are definitely hers, but I start all those from seed. This year, I'll bet I started 1,500 from seed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's nice because once you start them, they're cheap because flowers are easy to recover the seeds from for the next season if you want. So, but it's a lot of work. Putting 1,500 seeds into little pots and waiting for them to grow and then transplanting them and taking care of them. It's a lot of work, but it's good work.
Now my phone's blowing up with pictures of dogs.
Now you're going to get pictures of the dogs and flowers all day. That'll be a good day, though. Yeah. All right.
If I lived in one place and had 5 acres like you do, I'd probably have about 10 dogs.
Yeah, I've been tempted. I really have, but we're not out there full time yet, so we'll see.
Right.
Well, the next time when we are out there full time, and I'm going to get chickens back because I really loved having the chickens, and then we're going to get some goats, and then we're going to need a couple of big farm dogs to protect them from all the predators out there.
Okay.
All right. So we managed to do this for a full hour. We should probably get to some phone calls now. Let's go to Maryland to get started on the calls. Robert, welcome.
Hi. I got 2 quick questions for you. The first one is about the fast fuel system. The industrial, now it's called the industrial, and that's like the newest version. And I was looking at some of their videos on YouTube, and they were saying that you don't have to run your return line. You don't have to run dual return lines on that anymore. So I was wondering if that applied to, the Class 8 trucks as well, and how I would actually run it. Like, where do I run it? Do I run it right before the T where it splits off into the tank, or do I tap into it right at the back of the head and run it from there?
What kind of truck do you have?
FLD with 12.7 Detroit.
Okay. So yeah, these newer industrial series are meant to tie into the existing return lines. You don't have to run, a 6 or 8 foot line all the way back to the tanks. So on yours, do you have a DAPCO style fuel filter in there now?
No, I've got the two individual filters, one before and one after the fuel pump.
Okay. You can tie into either any part of the return line, anywhere you want to splice into. You can. It's just a T splice is all it is. But they made it really easy to work on right now.
Okay. And so with that, I can just completely eliminate the fuel filters that I've got on the engine right now, right?
You can, but I always tell people, if you have a metal spin on, try to keep one, just in case something were to happen, like maybe you kick up a rock or something, or you just never know. It's always good to have one extra fuel filter on the system. You're still going to save money by running it. You're still going to get fuel mileage and performance, out of the unit itself. But I'd rather have at least one extra filter on the truck. I even run one on my pickup. If something happens to the factory one, I have a metal spin on one underneath by the fuel tank, just in case something happens out in the road, that I have protection to make sure that the injectors stay good.
Oh, okay. All right. So that should probably be the one that's after the fuel pump. Leave that one on.
Whatever's easier, but yeah, that's probably the one I would pick too.
Oh, okay. All right. Then I got a question about Detroit calibrations. It's a DDEC 3 engine, and my ECM went up, and so I ended up with a DDEC 4 ECM, but my calibration was the old calibration, like a REL 03, and the new ECM had, the newer software on it. So I had somebody go in there and pretty much convert everything over, just kind of transfer the information, but not actually transfer the calibration itself. So now everything's working fine, except for like when I spend in the morning in the wintertime, I won't get a high idle, and I can't manually use high idle. Now my cruise control works when I'm going down the road. So I was wondering, like, where in the calibration do I have to look to just enable my high idle setting?
It's going to be a one-dimensional map. It's about 16 rows long by one column, and you're going to have a temperature axis and then an RPM axis. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's just idle RPM. And once you look for idle RPM, then you're going to be able to set what RPM you want at what temperature of oil for oil temperature. So it's a one-dimensional thing, and you can kind of start off, like, if it's really cold out, you can do 900, and then you can slowly drop the RPMs down to a certain point where you want it to idle.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've just been playing around because I got all the software and everything. So I've just been playing around there, looking in it, trying to get familiar with it and stuff. Is there anywhere that I can find like something that explains what each table is? Because a lot of it is just, it's just abbreviations and letters, and then it's like, all right, well, I know what the boy table is and things like that, but there's so many different letters in there. I'm like, well, what is this? What is this?
Yeah, you can right click on the calibration, and then there'll be a calibration listing. Once you create a calibration listing, you'll save a text document to wherever you want, usually the desktop. Then from there, once you open the calibration listing text document, it'll include the comments, which aren't regularly found when looking in the software, and the comments will give you some sort of idea. A lot of the abbreviations, though, you're just going to have to learn over time. They're not explicitly said what they are anywhere.
It's a big learning curve.
Right. Yeah. It's something to do. I like messing with the stuff.
No, it's awesome
playing around with
doing
it, and
yeah,
it's something to do in my spare time.
It's a good way to learn.
Yeah.
All
right. There's a lot.
Thanks for the call. Hey, Bruce. Is Bruce still with us? Bruce? Is anybody hearing me?
I hear you.
Yep.
Okay.
We hear you.
Does anybody know what happened to Bruce?
We didn't answer.
I had a great example of what we were just talking about earlier, but Bruce seems to be AWOL for the moment, so we'll take another call. Let's go to West Virginia. Jeremy, welcome.
Good afternoon. I want to start off with customer Pittsburgh Power for quite a while. I had a problem with my Detroit data link last week, and I wanted to give a shout out to JR I called him. I called the shop on Friday and left him a message around lunchtime. And before he went home, he called me back and hooked me up with a file that got me going with everything I needed. So I really appreciate him doing that for me. He didn't have to call me back before he was going home. So
That's awesome. I'm glad.
And second thing, I actually called you guys 3 weeks ago. I was in West Virginia again, but I was going down the road and lost my throttle. Pulled over the first time, hooked up the laptop, seeing that the throttle pedal was getting erratic voltages and cleared the code. Got 20 miles down the road, did it again, but the code wouldn't clear. I got down and wiggled the harness and got myself going again. I had to do that several more times before I got to the Freightliner dealer. I bought a new pedal. The truck died right before the exit to a truck stop before I could change it again. But the new pedal didn't work. So I got deep into the DDL on the troubleshooting, what you guys were talking about earlier, the troubleshooting tree. So I had my CPC out because it had me tracing wires in between, checking voltages, checking resistance between everything. But all three codes that I was getting, it kept saying that the pedal was bad. But the pedal was brand new. So I was starting to think maybe I had a wiring issue between them. I tried jumping a wire in between the pedal and the CPC, and that just made everything worse. Anyways, later that night, I started digging around on Facebook, and there was a bunch of people on there saying that the CPC is bad when that happens. I ended up having to change the CPC. But my point of my call was I went through that entire troubleshooting tree multiple times, doing all the testing. Not one time did it say that CPC was bad. Yeah. So I don't know if some of these other shops are running into that same deal, or
yeah, no, that's actually not that uncommon. Not specifically your CPC issue, but just the troubleshooting trees not actually pointing you in the right direction.
And one other thing, the last caller about the FAS. I did the FAS for the DD15 a year ago. And yeah, the return line is really easy to hook up on these. It's just got that T that screws into the filter housing, or the pump housing on the DD15. My only problem was the kit that came for it, the hose kit. I don't know what that thing was actually for, but it was not for a DD15 except for that fitting, because nothing else was right. So I don't know if you guys have gone through and modified that in the past year, or am I the only one that's told you that it was incorrect?
We don't use the fast install kits. We use Stratoflex with metal fittings in here. I don't stock the line kits for those. That would be straight from fast.
Oh, so maybe it was straight from fast. Okay, but I bought the pump and everything from you guys. So
okay, yeah, that would have been direct. Probably drop shipped actually from fast. There might be a handful of lines, but the only line kits that we make in house here are for the OPS.
But no, that kit, I had the Davco filter, and it says in the instructions to use the same fitting from the Davco filter. Well, you can't use the same fittings from the Davco filter because the Davco uses an O-ring setup, where the fast has pipe threads.
Yeah, we have adapter fittings back there, O-ring pipe.
Yeah, I didn't have that, and it did not come with the kit. So it was on a Sunday afternoon. I was installing it. I ended up running down to the hardware store and putting some plumbing in it, which I still have now. It's still working fine. But anyways, that's all I had. So thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call. Bruce, you with us yet?
Yeah, I had to mute you because the little guy was barking.
So kind of what we were talking about this morning, I just, somebody sent me something, it's a post on social media. It kind of goes along with this idea of not keeping up with the current information that's available and not being willing to change your mind, being so set in some idea. I really 2 examples of it within the last hour online. Listen to this post. Tell me what you think about this. Here's the truth nobody talks about. After treatment systems are silently killing small trucking businesses. The maintenance costs, they're wiping out the little guys. We're losing independent operators because they can't afford to keep up with the tech. Big fleets just absorb the hit, but for single truck owners, it's game over.
No, that's so not true.
Isn't that awful? I mean, seriously, that is somebody who is 10 years behind on what we talk about on the show and have for years and years.
I had to turn down a guy up in northern part of Canada because they keep buying new trucks and deleting them, and yet they're having issues with the person doing the deletes, and they want us to straighten them out. And I said, no, we're not going to work on those. And he was pretty upset. You're the old hot rod guy. You're the old school guy. You should be taking care of these for us. I said, all you got to do, we have a lot of dealers in Canada with the max mileage catalyst. Just run the catalyst, and you won't have any problems.
Spec them right, drive them right.
We've got a guy
right. Use the catalyst.
We've got a guy pulling
dozens of strategies.
13 axles. It's a new X15, 565, 390 gears, pulling 271,000 pounds at 55 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Running the max mileage catalyst and not having a problem.
This last sentence, but for a single truck owner, it's game over. It is the opposite right now. I have single truck owners that are doing, their numbers are still strong. And I look at carriers like one of the best examples is Heartland. I've talked about Heartland for years. They run some of the best operating ratios of any fleet I've ever seen. Really good with their numbers. I check their operating ratio every year. They're always at the top of the industry until right now. They are struggling in this environment. And on the other hand, I have single truck owner operators that are doing well. I'm not going to say anybody's really thriving right now, but they're doing just fine. They're in no danger whatsoever of going out of business. And many of them run new equipment. And the equipment is not the problem. I'm fine. You can still run old trucks. We can make money with those. If you know how to buy and maintain new trucks, you can still make plenty of money with those. This attitude, though, and mindset. And then I had another example, and I should have known better. I don't normally do this, but I did today just because I wanted to. Somebody that I follow online, and she's got a huge following, like 80,000 followers. And she posted her breakfast this morning, and it was a big bowl of cereal and a giant 2 halves of a giant bagel, and I think an apple and some other things. And I just made the comment. I said, that's not breakfast. That's diabetes and metabolic syndrome on a plate. And and I put up a picture of steak and eggs. I said, here's what you should be eating, real food. Normally, I don't do stuff like that. Normally, I only respond when people ask me something. But I just looked at that plate and I thought that is what is making people so sick in this country. And holy cow, her 80,000 followers have all turned on me. I am now what is wrong with the world. That's what they're claiming. Again, just this idea that people have, they just will not change their mind about anything anymore.
You know, you see a lot of posts. The bigger the biscuits and gravy, along with the, what do we call it, the deep fried hamburger with breading on it?
Chicken fried steak.
Yeah, chicken fried steak, and the gravy and the mashed potatoes, and the whole plate is covered. And I'm like, why are they eating so much? And they're going to jump back in their truck, and that's just going to sit there in their belly.
There's a reason why we overeat those foods too. There's several reasons. And it goes back to hormones. Insulin will rise like crazy. because blood sugar is rising when you eat something like that. And then the insulin drops the blood sugar so fast that that is a warning sign to your body. If your blood sugar drops too low, you die. So when your body sees that, they get this big insulin spike, which we just talked about, which means your body is now going to store all those calories as fat. Then blood sugar drops so fast because of the big insulin dump, and your body is screaming at you that you better go eat again to get your blood sugar back up. So you eat that giant breakfast loaded with carbs, and you can barely make it till lunch. You're so hungry. Eat, good fatty meat and eggs for breakfast, and you might not eat the rest of the day sometimes. You will not. And the other reason for it is our body has hunger for one reason, because we need nutrition to live. But in the standard American diet, there's so little nutrition that no matter how much you eat, your body keeps telling you to keep eating because you haven't gotten the nutrition you need yet. So, but I am what's wrong with the world because I pointed that out and made a negative comment about somebody's breakfast. So let's get to some
mother's
phone calls.
oats. Yeah. Mother's oats.
Phone lines are open, 855-950-3835, or hit that call now button on your app, and we will get to your calls. We are actually on our last call on the board right now. Let's go to Nebraska. Grant, welcome to the program.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a good day.
What's on your mind today?
I'm a company driver, and we are lucky enough to get to demo a new Navistar with the S13 and the T14 transmission. I got to drive it on Saturday, and it's pretty nice. My question is, what is a good protocol to establish the test to see? The trucks we currently have are Lone Stars with X15s and automated manual 13 speeds, and 355 rear ends for in and out of construction sites. So I'm just wondering what I should be simulating since we have it for a week.
Well, first off, if you only have that truck for a week, we're not going to get much real data. And second off, if we need to compare it, if you're asking how do we compare it to the current trucks, well, you need at least 30 days of good data on the current trucks. Do you have that?
Okay. Yeah, I have that for the one I drive.
Yeah, and that's all that's going to matter. I mean, you're not going to be able to make this work for everybody else. If you've got a good 30 days worth of data and your operation is fairly consistent, there's, like we just talked about this morning, over 80 variables that could affect all of this, then in a week, we're not going to be able to get a very good average. I mean, 30 days is kind of like a minimum of what I want to see. If you notice how we've laid out fuel gauges, the app, we see a 30-day average, we see a 60-day average, we see a 90-day average, and we see a lifetime average. And between all four of those,
that's where I have all my data.
Excellent. All four of those numbers, now we can tell a lot, and we can now go into individual fuel ups and learn even more. Well, if we had, at least 30 days of that with the new truck, we'd have some reasonable comparisons. Not perfect, not even close, but reasonable. In a week, it's pretty tough. And you also have to remember these trucks aren't broke in yet.
No. Yeah, it's only got 1,400 miles.
Right. We may not see fuel mileage settle down until between somewhere in 50 and 100,000 miles sometimes.
Okay.
So, can I ask a couple questions?
Yeah.
On the new International, does it respond well? Does it pull good? Does it stay in its gear as it's pulling?
I've only done one load, and it was a 40-foot long air conditioner on a flatbed. So it's not real heavy. But, yeah, it was pretty snappy. We're in Nebraska, so it's fairly flat going down I-80. And it hasn't been a good test so far. I'm like, come on, we need something to actually test this with, not just go 40 miles. But regional crane company, so that's kind of what I'm stuck with.
So you're a crane company, so you take the air conditioners and pick them up with the cranes and put them on the buildings, correct?
Yep, and right now there's a lot of construction going on around us, so they pay us to offload them from the over-the-road guys, put them on our trailer, sit on them for 3 or 4 months till the site's ready, and then one day all 20 to 30 semi-trailers go to the site, and the crane just pick them up, set them down, pick them up, set them down. It's pretty hectic.
When I was 21 years old, we did that. I was with Rutherford Corporation. We made huge counterflow furnaces and air conditioners, and we would get them at the job site. This is 1971, and then we'd have the crane and the iron workers and get them all up. But my question is, you're going in and out of job sites, but you're not going in and out of mud, correct? You're on hard dirt?
There might be some mud.
Okay. On the X15, why do they have 355 gears? Why aren't they more like a 308 gear?
I would have guessed lack of knowledge.
Because the 355 lets the engine run too high in its RPM range when you're going down the interstate.
And that is, I'm the only one that ignores the speed limit. If I'm correct, the X15 likes 1100 RPM for peak torque, correct?
Yeah, 11 to 14.
So I cruise at 1300 RPMs on the interstate, which is 63, and everybody else like, you're going too slow. I'm like, well, it's where the engine and the truck spec, so I'm not.
That's exactly right.
Have any trouble.
You're right. So I'll give you credit for paying attention to that.
Well, thank you.
So on the International, what's the rear gears on it?
I didn't crawl under to double check. They told me 247.
Probably
247s.
Pretty common for that setup, I think. We haven't seen many of them yet, so I'd love to get some feedback on it.
It's a single overdrive. They didn't have the printout of the transmission ratios when they dropped it off last Friday, and so I'm hoping to make it to the dealership today to get the gear ratios just so I can know more.
You said it was a 14 speed?
Correct.
I'd like to know what first gear is and what 14th gear is. And which gear is the one
I'll let you know.
Okay.
14th is probably
the regional guy said it was going to be 13 was direct.
Yeah, and the 14 is going to be like a 0.78 or somewhere in that range. I'm thinking with the 14 speed, and I haven't done enough research on this yet, that they're probably going to be copying Volvo, and they'll put 1 or 2 really low gears in that transmission.
That was my hope. When I was hooked onto the trailer, it started out in 5th gear. I was like, wow, that seems kind of high, but it pulled just fine. So
yeah, it'll be interesting. So let us know when you get these and start running them.
All right, will do.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
I don't know what happened. We just lost the calls we had on the board. We had some calls that are gone. So anybody have anything? I have a feeling we'll get some calls coming back in. I'm not sure what just happened there.
I want to ask you about Mother's Oats.
Okay.
Years ago, whenever I was looking at the trainers at the gym 25 years ago, they were just eating gobs of Mother's Oats. So I figured, oh, well, they're bodybuilders, they're trainers. I was eating a lot of Mother's Oats and went to my chiropractor, and he does the muscle testing. And he says, oh, you're having an allergic reaction to oats. He said, are you eating Mother's Oats? I said, every morning, a big bowlful. He says, well, quit it for at least 30 days because your body's rejecting it. So
quit it for a lifetime. Oats are another grain we shouldn't be eating. It's just not human food.
Yeah.
It's really not. We feed this stuff to the animals, and then we'll eat the animals. That's really how it's supposed to work. So oats, we've been convinced that was such a healthy breakfast. It's absolutely not. Why do we think you had a negative reaction to them?
That's right.
Your body
and what
was telling
about
you.
the barley? Beet barley
Same
soup.
thing.
Barley
Same thing.
in the
Another
same
grain.
category as oats.
It's another grain. So over the 10 years that I've been doing this, and I continue to keep an open mind, I continue to learn, I continue to read, I continue questioning what I've known. I am now to the point, and you would have a hard time convincing me any different unless I see new information, and I'm always willing to look. The human diet should be mostly animal foods. Plants are optional, and many of them are just not good for us, including vegetables. I mean, we've always thought that vegetables are the healthiest category of food we eat. It's not true. There are lots and lots of reasons we should not be eating vegetables. Phytates, lectins, oxalates, those are all chemical defenses in the plant, and they're not good for us. They build up over time and they cause health issues. So my diet, my recommendations anymore are try to get at least 90% of the food you eat as animal products. And the 10% that are plant-based, you should be very careful about what they are. I think fruit, as long as you can handle the sugar content in fruit, and there's a lot of it in our fruit today. I'm metabolically healthy because I've been doing this a long time. So I eat fruit every day, 1 to 2 servings, never more than that. And a lot of people, I have to tell them, you just have to stay away from the fruit for a long time. The vegetables I eat are because I really like them, or they're actually a lot of the vegetables that people think are vegetables and the vegetables that tend not to have any problems are really fruits. People don't realize that an avocado is a fruit, not a vegetable. A tomato is a fruit, not a vegetable. A cucumber is a fruit, not a vegetable. Olives are fruits. Those are some of the plant foods that we can eat, and they don't have a lot of problems. The reason is all living things, nobody wants to die and be eaten. And animals at least can defend themselves or run away or hide or whatever. Plants can't. So plants developed chemical defenses. And that's what all those things in vegetables are, the lectins, the phytates, the oxalates. Fruits, though, fruits actually want to be eaten because that's how we spread their seeds. So fruits tend to have fewer problems than most vegetables, but really our diet should be primarily animal products.
Okay.
All right. We've got a call. We're going to get to it. Let's go to Tennessee. Chris, welcome to the program.
Hey, guys. Great to talk to you. How are you today?
Good. What can we help you with?
Yeah, I've got a 1996 N14 Select Plus, and my question, on my ECM, so far I've not had any problems. Do you guys suggest taking this ECM off and maybe send it to Pittsburgh Power or somebody that can reman these just to have it checked, or would you just go ahead and run it until a problem presents itself?
Me personally, I would probably just run it until you have any issues. I mean, there's things that we can do, like we can get it in, we can open it up and make sure it doesn't have any water or oil or fuel intrusion, make sure there's no corrosion that's starting to build up. We can catch it early. That's something that we can do. But as far as testing for like electrical, like component issues you're going to have down the road, that's just not something that we're able to do. But yeah, I mean, we could open it up, reseal it. That's something I think that we could do. But other than that, I would probably just run it.
Okay, I was just wondering about that. I know this engine's, it's pretty old, and I didn't know what the lifespan of an ECM was on these. And just thought I'm sorry.
What's your CPL?
It's a 2025.
All right, so somebody put this engine in this 96 truck then?
No, it's the original engine. It's a 379 Peterbilt. It came in the truck. I got the bill.
It's a 96. It's a 96.
The truck's a 96. Now, it's possible the engine, I don't know if it was built in 95. I don't know. But I do know it is the original engine that came in the truck.
And it's And would you say the CPL was 2592?
No, it's a 2025.
Okay, well, that was the best. That was the absolute best N14, the 2025. I am shocked that that's in a 96 truck. That engine wasn't available until mid-98.
Really?
That's amazing. Yeah, you threw me a curve there when you said a 96. Wow, you got a 379 with a 2025. That's a wonderful truck right there.
Yeah, so far it's been a great truck. I've had it a couple years and no major problems.
That's a keeper. 13 speed?
Yeah, 13 speed, 336 rear ends.
Good. Awesome.
But
what speed do you run it?
I normally run 68 to 70. I'm cruising right now at 70, tacking in 1500.
And what's your turbo boost on the level at 15?
Around 7, 8.
Good. That's good.
Yeah, it's a great truck so far. But I was just, I hear ECM nightmares and this and that. And I thought, well, I would talk to you. I actually called Pittsburgh Power a couple times, but nobody never returned my call. So I thought, hey, I'm gonna call the show and see if I can get a hold of you guys and see what you recommended where to take this off and send it to you and let y'all guys go through it, or just run it till something happens.
All right. So now you're going to get somebody in trouble. Who did you leave the message for?
Now that I don't know. I called once and left a message, and then a few days later, maybe a week, I called again, and they took my information, and nobody never returned. That's been probably, I don't know, that's probably been 5 or 6 weeks ago. So I was just listening to the show today, and I thought, hey, I'm going to give you guys a call and see what you recommend on this.
So that's a problem for me. I have a problem when calls don't get returned.
Oh, it's no big deal.
It is a big deal. You know, Buddy
I
Hackett?
appreciate that.
You know who Buddy Hackett is, the old comedian? He's probably passed away now.
Oh, yeah, I remember him.
Well, Buddy Hackett saw a blind guy, and the seeing eye dog was walking him across the street. And there was a medium in the center of the road, and there were cars coming. And the dog gets the blind man to the medium, and he almost gets hit by the cars. And so the blind man rewards the dog with a cookie. And another guy walks up and said, my God, that dog almost got you killed. Why in the world are you giving him a cookie? He said, because I'm trying to figure out where his head is so I can kick him in the ass. So I want to kick somebody in the ass for not returning your call, but you can't tell me who it was.
Yeah, I know it. I didn't get anybody's name. Whoever answered, it was a man that answered the phone, and I left a message, and they said somebody would get back to me. But like I say, that's, I got a hold of you guys today, and you told me what I needed to know. So I'm just going to keep on running this thing till it gives me a problem.
There you go. All right.
So for everybody listening, when you go to leave a message, and if you don't get a call back, let me know. I want to know who you spoke to.
All right. Phone lines are open. We have no calls right at the moment. We'll wait just a couple minutes, see if we get any calls in. While we're doing that, since we're waiting on calls, did anybody pay attention to the conversation yesterday on an X space between Trump and Elon Musk?
I saw an article about it, but I didn't read it. I just saw the headline.
Yeah, so
I saw where the European Union was trying to strong arm Musk about doing it. They wanted him to back out. I saw that right before, but I didn't get a chance.
There was a lot. I mean, there's a lot going on around that. That's one issue. So during this week and some of last week, the European Union came out and they were prosecuting people for posting misinformation online or reposting even. prosecuting people. They're putting in people in jail over this in the European Union. So with that all going on, and then Elon Musk offers to do and he didn't even call it an interview. He said, it's just going to be a conversation. It's going to be the two of us talking. He immediately got a letter from the European Union, and they were threatening him with legal actions if he allowed Trump to make any false claims. Threatening him. And did you see what his response was? He's hilarious. The more I see about this guy, the more impressed I am with him. He sent them back a meme because, that's what social media is these days. And I'm not going to say it on the air, but it basically said to the European Union, please take a big step backwards and F yourself in your own face. That was his response to the European Union threatening him with some sort of legal action. So I wanted to hear it. So I was, waiting to get on the space yesterday with a couple of 100,000 other people, and it didn't start on time. And at first I couldn't get in to the space at all. It just kept failing. And I kept trying and trying. Finally, I get in and they were just playing the hold music, and it was like 30 minutes late already. And Elon tweeted out that they were experiencing a massive DDoS, which is a distributed denial of service. Somebody was trying to take X down because this was happening. He said it was massive. He said they tested their system. I want to say they tested it with like 80 million connections, and it passed the test. And then when they went to go online, somebody must have been hitting them with more than 80 million attempts to sign in, and it took the system down. But in like 40 minutes, they managed to get it fixed, and they got it up, and they went over 2 hours, and there were no technical issues whatsoever. That post, as of this morning, in less than 24 hours, had 1 billion impressions.
Was his when he was talking to Trump?
Yes. Yeah, it was just him and Trump talking. It wasn't an interview. These two were talking.
I didn't get to hear it. How do I get to hear that?
Do you have an X account? Are you on X?
I do not.
It's the only place I know. Well, now you could probably find it on YouTube.
Is it an app? X account?
X is an app, yeah. And I could send you a link directly to that, but I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube. And YouTube, you wouldn't have to load any apps or open an account. You could just go to YouTube and look for it, I'll bet. Because I saw it had huge numbers on YouTube. But overall, it's had 1 billion impressions since yesterday. It hasn't even been 24 hours yet. And the media absolutely lost their mind over it. That's all the news is talking about today, in a very, very negative way.
Is that right?
Yeah. They are losing their mind. And it's not like it is. Honestly, it's like these two sat down at a bar and started talking over a couple beers. They're laughing and jumping back and forth from topic to topic. And Elon Musk made some pretty damn powerful statements. He made one. I'm going to paraphrase it. I'll probably I'll butcher it a little bit, but he basically made the statement pretty clear that if Kamala Harris, however you're supposed to say her name, is elected president, that is the road to poverty, and it will destroy the country. And then he said, and to Donald Trump, and he said, you are the opposite path.
He's absolutely correct.
That's a pretty strong statement.
Do you hear how Kamala explains what people need to do about the price of food and the price of gasoline?
I've heard a couple things, but there's probably more. What did she say now?
Just learn to live with it. It's the cost of living.
Oh. It has nothing to do with the trillions of dollars the government keeps spending.
No.
Yeah.
Just learn to live with it. It's the cost of living.
Yeah. It was an interesting conversation. It wasn't an interview. It goes on and on. And It was worth the listen. And like I said, the numbers are just incredible. And go ahead.
Did you see the post of years ago when Trump was a younger person and he was with the Clintons and several other people from the Democratic Party, and they were all friends because he contributed to them? And now they don't like him because they were told they're not allowed to like him.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. He was well connected with everybody across almost all political parties for years and years, and he was a Democrat for a long time, and he's not anymore, obviously. But you know who else? Elon Musk used to be the hero of the left because he built electric cars, and they want everything to be electric. He was their hero for years. They hate that guy now.
Well, you know, I used to hate Caterpillar engines. If it didn't say Cummins on it, it shouldn't have been on the road.
Yeah.
Hated Caterpillars. Hated Detroits. First 60 series I looked at a truck show, saw those electric wires laying under that valve cover. I thought that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Look how weak these components are, comparing them to a big cam. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. And then we came out with the power box for the Caterpillar. Then we started working on the Caterpillars. And then I test drove them. I said, hey, I like this engine. And the more I test drove them, the more I liked them. And then we were forced to get into the 60 series in 2003 because of the truck racing. And Detroit was supplying the engines, non-EGR 14 liters. We had to build a power box for it. And I was working with the Borg Warner engineers. I said, man, I like this engine. This engine works really well. Well, isn't it the same as the fight between Ford, Chevy, and Dodge, and now Toyota pickup? If your grandfather always had a Ford, and you always had a Ford, or Dad had a Ford, and you always have Fords because it's always Ford in the driveway. But if you drive something else and you like it, it was the same way with me leaving Cummins and going and driving a Caterpillar. I'm not talking about hauling freight. I'm talking about when we test drive them. And so I've learned to love the other engines because they're all good. And then I hated Dodge in high school and back when I rode race Corvettes. You couldn't have given me a Mopar. And I was forced to buy an '89 Dodge because it had a Cummins in it.
There you go.
And I was going to take black tape and put on everything that said Mopar or Dodge. I was going to cover it up. And then I learned to love the truck. And then when I got my 95, I really loved that truck. And so I could go back to a Chevrolet. I still think the Chevrolet makes a great pickup truck. And Ford is certainly the leader now in torque in the diesel pickups. And I guess if I had to buy a Ford, I could learn to live with that. It'd probably put a smile on Eric's face. But isn't politics the same way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why can't politics be the same way? Just because you were raised in a union family, because you were raised a Democrat, or if you were raised a Republican like I was, if the Democrats came out with somebody just phenomenal, I would have no trouble voting for them. We had a Mayor Caligiuri in Pittsburgh. He was a Democrat. Unfortunately, came down with a disease, and it took his life. But he was the best mayor in my lifetime for the city of Pittsburgh. He was a Democrat. I voted for him.
Bruce, when I was growing up, my father, 4 brothers, 2 brother-in-laws, a couple uncles, they were all in the Teamsters the whole time growing up. I mean, I grew up in a union family, and I am very anti-union today. And I have been most of my life. I mean, even growing up as a teenager, something about that whole thing just didn't feel right to me.
I was 19 and I got a job at Motor Freight Express as midnight dock foreman, and they were local 249 Teamsters. And out of my whole group, I had about 2 guys that would earn their pay. The rest of them would just dog work all night long. And I'm 19 years old, and I'm their supervisor. I had to go to community college in the morning. I had learned to despise the word union after that.
Yeah.
And I thought, to me, a union was where a man would go to hide that didn't want to work. But we have to be willing to make changes. I mean, and I look at the pickup truck deal, and I look at the way I felt about other diesel engines until I drove them, and I said, hey, this is good. If we can make them all run good, it doesn't matter what color the engine is, doesn't matter what name's on the valve cover. If you can make it run good and you like the way it runs and it serves you well. And politics should be the same way.
You know, Bruce, you made the comment you wanted to cover up everything that said the name. And I know I mentioned this to you last week, and it's still going on, the whole Harley issue with the woke and all their policies. And there is a huge trend now that people who own Harley Davidsons are taking off all of the insignia.
Is that right?
Yeah, they don't want to get rid of the motorcycle. They like it, but they don't want to support the company, and they're taking off all. It was going on in Sturgis. There was a big deal about it at Sturgis that it was, controversial there, and the Harley Davidson presence was getting blasted over it, and people started taking off their insignia and then posting pictures online saying, I'm keeping the bike, I'm getting rid of the name.
That's a shame. That's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
Terrible when a company would do that.
Let's grab a call. Let's go to Denver. Sandro, welcome.
Hey, how are you, Kevin? How are you, Bruce?
Good. What's on your mind today?
I'm planning to buy a 19 Freightliner Cascadia with a DT13. I think we spoke about this maybe a couple of days ago, last week. I went ahead and test drove the truck yesterday, and I have a question. What I saw is like the RPM is oscillating a little bit, just like slightly oscillating. Is there a reason why? Because I heard from the guys from the shop it's kind of normal. The DD13 and DD15 to oscillate it a little bit. What could cause that issue?
Is it oscillating in the tachometer, or can you feel the engine accelerating and decelerating?
On a tachometer, and I can hear it a little bit.
You can hear it going up and down, up and down.
Yeah, it's on a tachometer is like very slightly, like I would say like maybe 300 to 500.
That's a pretty big movement.
Yeah. Leroy, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, they're not going to around that much, maybe 5-10 RPM, but anything more than that, it has some sort of fueling issue. One of the most common is the quantity control valve, or the PLV, the pressure limiting valve on the back of the fuel rail. One of those two things is going to cause the MCM, the control system, to fluctuate like that.
Do you think it's the clutch slipping at all?
If it's just idling?
Oh, it's doing it idle.
That's what I understood.
Just one idle. Just one idle, yes. And I saw there was a report showing that there was a low pressure fuel on the rail.
What?
A low pressure fuel.
What engine was this?
A DD13.
DD13 with the 430,000 miles on it.
We used to talk about this a lot on the Series 60. They would start surging at idle. That used to be a fairly common thing on the Series 60. I think some of it was ECM related.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
because driving, I had no problem driving. I didn't see any.
Yeah, and that's the way the Series 60 was. It would surge at idle. And I had a couple of them that started to do it. It affected almost nothing else. Fuel economy was fine. Power was fine. They drove just fine. But sitting at an idle, they would surge.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
fuel mileage was okay. Of course, I'm not holding straight.
Yeah, I remember we used to talk about it a lot, other than every once in a while, finding, I think one of them was a bad battery on an ECM on the Series 60, and that fixed it on one, I remember. But for the most part, I don't think we ever really knew what fixed it, but it didn't matter much because it didn't seem to affect anything.
If you mentioned the battery, I said when I got there, I had a dead battery. They had to jump start the truck.
This was the battery in the ECM itself. That the DD13 doesn't have a battery in the ECM, does it, Leroy?
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. I actually never torn one apart to know.
Well, you've never replaced one, right? Obviously not, because you've never torn one apart. So I don't know. I don't know that a dead battery on the truck would have any impact on that, although electronics are sensitive enough, I guess it could.
Well, you also said you had a code for low rail pressure?
Yes. You had a code on that. They said they addressed, they changed the fuel filters. But what they said is they thought about this surge that.
Yeah, it sounds like. You have some sort of fuel system issue. They have 3 different automatic tests inside of the diagnostic software that will test for fuel leaks. That's most of the time what they classify it under as a fuel leak, whether that's from the injector or the PLV. You can do some other things to see if the quantity control valve is correct. But that's all automatic testing that you can do within the software. But yeah, it sounds like it has some sort of small fuel system issue.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, that's what I thought. They thought it was kind of normal in those engines, but it doesn't sound normal to me, even though it's really minor. But yeah. All right, sounds good. And I have a quick question about this engine. At the moment, this engine has 450 horsepower. Is that the maximum for DD13 or?
No, not at all. No, with any sort of custom programming, we can get a lot higher than that. I think 475 might be the highest for a DD13 from the factory, but with custom tuning, we can take it up to 550. That's a pretty safe mark, and a lot of people enjoy that. I think we just dynoed one the other day. It does like 475, 480 at the tires. So definitely safe, but a lot better than stock.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's see what 480 at the let's see what 480 at the tires comes out to.
Right.
Comes out to 564 horsepower.
Yeah.
What rear gears are in that truck?
279.
279, so it's a single over. Okay.
Automated with overdrive. So I'll speed it with overdrive.
What are they asking?
48.
What year was that truck?
19.
How many miles?
Yeah. 430.
430. Hey, it's funny, and the reason I jumped in there is right when you were talking about that, I was looking at a truck for sale online. Yeah, and I am shocked at what people are still willing to pay for these trucks. This is a 2014 Peterbilt 389, big hood, classic, horrible aerodynamics, an X15 with an 18-speed. This is going to be a horrible truck for fuel economy. It's got 1 million miles on it, and they want $65,000 for this truck. And it's not show quality.
What year is it?
It's a 14 with 1 million miles on it.
Wow.
And it's not like super clean. I mean, it's a nice looking truck, but it's just the average 2014 389. It's not like show quality or really taken care of. It's just an average truck, but 10 years old with 1 million miles on it. And they want $65,000. That's insane.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, those in my book, those are $20,000 trucks. Crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for the call. Anybody have anything they want to close with?
Yeah, Paul Carmine wants us to rename the show.
Okay.
He says we might want to change the name of the show, Pittsburgh Power Hour and Fireside Chat.
I
said, is that okay? And he said, yes, I like it.
Well, when he said that, I kind of knew where he was going based on how the show went today. And I was going to say our show today was a lot like the call between Musk and Trump. They just sat down and started talking about something. He had no list of questions. There's no certain topics. They just started talking and they moved from one topic to another. And it was really refreshing to hear that kind of talk.
Okay. All right, sir. Well, I've got to go out and deliver some catalyst.
All right. Perfect. Thank you guys as always. We will do this again next week. If you have any questions between now and then, give them a call at Pittsburgh Power. Also, if you're going to call them and ask them questions, support them. That really, really helps. You could support us too. You could head over onto the Let's Truck store, get some Cardio Miracle. Bruce, did I tell you about the event I'm going to in Salt Lake City?
No.
So one of our vendors on the health side, Cardio Miracle, one of the few supplements that I do take every day. I don't take many supplements, but I take that one every day. We've got a great partnership with them. It's a great company. The Tucker Carlson tour. He's going around the country and doing different events. At every stop, he's got a different guest. So he's going to be in Salt Lake City, and in Salt Lake City, his guest is Glenn Beck, and it's an event, a speaking event, and Cardio Miracle's got they're one of the big sponsors of that event in Salt Lake City. That one specifically, because that's where they're from.
Mm-hmm.
So they are one of the big sponsors, and they got a bunch of VIP tickets, and they offered me 2 of the VIP tickets. So I'm going. I wanted Lisa to go, but she can't get away. So I'm actually taking somebody who does our social media for us, and he's going to be filming and recording, and I'm going to try to do a bunch of interviews while I'm there. And but I will be in the VIP reception in the beginning. I know I get to take a picture with Tucker. I don't know if I'm going to get to talk to him or not, but I'm hoping I might get a chance to. So, and we have, besides the tickets I'm going on, we have 4 regular tickets that we're raffling off. So between now and I think you've got like 10 days. If you go to our store and you buy anything from Cardio Miracle at all, we put you in a drawing, and then we're going to draw 2 winners and give them 2 tickets each. So I'm looking forward to it. It's coming up pretty quick, September 7th.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, he lives on Gasparillo Island, and that's 9 miles across Charlotte Harbor from me in Florida in the wintertime.
Glenn?
No, Tucker.
Tucker does?
Tucker
Okay.
Carlson.
He must.
Yeah. I haven't run into him yet, and I know I've run into some people that know where his home is, but they keep it pretty secret.
Yeah, he must.
We rent golf carts over there.
Go back and forth between Montana or Wyoming. I think he's got a big ranch up there somewhere. Must spend summers up there. All right. Good stuff.
Got some great interviews.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it.
Did you see his one about Watergate and Nixon?
I did. Isn't that crazy? That we're.
Isn't that a shame?
Yeah, I know. It just makes me crazy that we're still learning stuff about things that happened so long ago and we've questioned so many times.
The one president that stopped the Vietnam War, and they crucified him.
Yeah. Well, all right. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll do it again next week. We'll see you back here tomorrow for Destination Health. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the